My fellow South Africans, let me ask you a question that cuts to the bone. What if the victory we were told to celebrate turned out to be a hollow drum? What if the man welcomed as a liberator, whose voice shook the conscience of the world, was actually leading us toward a future that has become, in ways we are too afraid to speak aloud, a mirror image of the very system we were assured would be dismantled? Today, we talk about Jesse Jackson's legacy through the cold, hard lens of the reality we live in right now, in our suburbs, on our farms, in the quiet desperation of a people told their very existence is a sin. When you peel back the layers of the narrative, when you see the farm murders, the potholes swallowing our roads, the lights going out and the economy crumbling, you begin to see a devastating picture that the alternative to apartheid has, for millions of white South Africans, become a fate worse than the system he fought against. Let us go back to a time before the world turned its back on us. Jesse Jackson arrives on our shores, a titan from America, a protege of Martin Luther King Jr. himself. The year is July 1979. The townships are burning and the world is watching, and here comes Jesse Jackson, standing on a makeshift stage in Soweto, his voice rising and falling like a prophet of old, telling our black compatriots that their oppressors' days are numbered. And we watched from our homes, from our farms, from the suburbs our grandfathers built with their own hands, and we felt a cold dread settle in our bones, because we knew, even then, that his words were not just words, they were a match held to dry grass. He went back to America and became the megaphone for our destruction. He railed against Ronald Reagan's constructive engagement, the very policy that was trying to keep the peace, trying to keep the economy stable, trying to prevent exactly what we are living through now. He marched on Harvard and Columbia, demanding they pull their money out of companies that were feeding our families, paying our workers, keeping the lights on. He called it hitting the jugular vein. In January 1985, he went to the Pope at the Vatican, and he also lobbied Russia's Gorbachev. He was everywhere, and we watched from our lodges, our hearts heavy with a grief we could not express. Here was a brother from across the water who had never understood our history, never sat at our dinner tables, and he was condemning us to oblivion. But listen to me carefully. While he was fighting that fight, a very specific vision was being forged. A vision where the end of white political authority was the only goal, the nuance, the deep, complicated fear of the white community, the people who had built this land's infrastructure, who established its industries, who knew no other home but South Africa, was dismissed as the last gasp of a dying wicked beast. The message was simple: take the power and the wealth will follow. Jesse Jackson and his cohort sold our black brothers and sisters a dream of instant economic liberation that was always a mirage. And they sold us a nightmare of dispossession. And then, in 1994, the miracle was announced. The Rainbow Nation was born, and we, the white South Africans, extended our hand. We believed in the promise, we believed in the forgiveness, we believed that we could build something new together. But did the rainbow include us? Or were we merely tolerated as long as we kept our heads down and our mouths shut? Fast forward to April 2018. Jackson is back, this time to eulogize Winnie Madikizela Mandela at her funeral on the 14th of April. And he stands before the nation at Wits University and the Gordon Institute of Business Science, and he delivers a verdict. He looks at the new South Africa with its black elite in their German cars, its massive unemployment among those he claimed to liberate, its crumbling infrastructure that we once maintained, its farms lying fallow because the new owners lacked the knowledge or the will, and he says, and I quote, "We fought and won political apartheid, which gave us freedom, but it had almost nothing to do with economic resources." He went further. He said, blacks are not economically free in South Africa, and whites are free and richer. He called it economic apartheid. Now stop and think about that phrasing. Economic apartheid. A black American preacher is telling our black population that they are still oppressed, still unfree, still victims. And who is the oppressor in this new narrative? It is us. It is the white farmer working his land. It is the white businessman trying to keep his doors open. It is the white family just trying to survive in a country that has declared war on their existence. He is not healing the wound. He is picking at the scab. He is telling them that the system we have now, the system he helped usher in, is functionally apartheid by another name. And who is to blame for this economic apartheid? According to his logic, it is the white man who still has a job, the white man who still owns a farm, the white man who still dares to exist. You see, before 1994, the white minority ran a country that worked. It worked for all of us who were willing to participate in the economy. The lights stayed on, the trains ran on time, the farms produced enough food to feed the nation and export to the continent, the hospitals functioned, the rule of law was respected, there was a currency of value, there was a society that, however unjust in its political arrangements, was stable and prosperous. It was a fortress built on a foundation of inequality, yes, but it was a fortress that kept the wolves from the door for everyone who lived within its walls, regardless of their role. Jesse Jackson and the movement he represented demanded that fortress be torn down, brick by brick, and we were forced to watch as it happened. But what did we build in its place? We built a system of political freedom for some, yes, everyone can vote. But for the white man, what has that vote bought him? It has bought him a landscape of economic insecurity, physical danger, and cultural erasure. He is taxed to fund a government that calls him an oppressor. His children cannot find work because of skin color. His farm is under threat of expropriation without compensation. Just this year, in January 2026, the government approved a new bill outlining specific conditions for land expropriation without compensation, a sword of Damocles hanging over every rural family. His ancestors' graves are dug up by land claimants. His language is pushed out of universities. His history is rewritten as a tale of pure evil. And the black man, the very object of Jesse Jackson's concern, has been abandoned. He lives in a shack, without a job, without hope, surrounded by crime, and he is told that it is still the white man's fault. The white man, meanwhile, has retreated behind higher and higher walls, his wealth slowly being bled dry by corruption and incompetence, his soul crushed by a constant drumbeat of racial resentment and policies designed to take, not to build. And this is the part that breaks my heart for all of us. Jesse Jackson, in his April 2018 speech, urged our black compatriots to stand up and fight, to extinguish the slave mentality. He told them not to feel inferior. He told them to fight for economic freedom. But what does that fight look like on the ground, in the reality he helped create? It looks like a war against the very engine of the economy. And that engine, for better or worse, was built and maintained by white hands and white minds. It looks like farm murders that chill the blood of every rural family, where white men and women are hacked and shot and burned on the land their families have worked for generations. It looks like land expropriation without compensation, a policy that sends shivers down the spine of every person who believes in the rule of law, regardless of their skin color, but which targets white property owners specifically and exclusively. It looks like a ruling class that has mastered the language of liberation but practices the art of self-enrichment, while the black and white poor are left to fight over the crumbs. So, I ask you, was Jesse Jackson's fight fruitful for us, the white South Africans who have been painted as the eternal villains? Or was it a tragic, monumental waste that has destroyed the lives of both black and white? He helped break the back of a system that, for all its political brutality, was at least predictable and functional. In its place, he helped create the moral justification for a system that is unpredictable, dysfunctional, and in many ways more cruel for everyone involved. Under apartheid, a white child grew up with a sense of order, of belonging, of purpose. He knew his community, his church, his culture. Today, that same white child grows up behind electric fences, watching his parents struggle against affirmative action. listening to politicians promise to take his home, and he is told that his very existence is a crime that must be atoned for. The black child, meanwhile, grows up in a shack, without a job, without hope, surrounded by crime, and the enemy is invisible. It's a system that tells him he is free, yet chains him to poverty and points a finger at his white neighbor as the cause. Jesse Jackson looked at us, at our white compatriots, and saw only oppressors. He never stopped to see the humanity of the frightened Afrikaner farmer whose great-grandfather is buried in the same soil he now fears he will be driven from, whose family has known no other home for 300 years. He never stopped to consider that the alternative to white rule might not be a utopia for all, but a kleptocracy for a few and a battlefield for the rest. He celebrated the fall of the fortress, but he had no blueprint for the city on the hill that was supposed to replace it. He left us with nothing but ashes and resentment. And now we are left to pick up the pieces. We are left with a nation bleeding from 1,000 wounds, a nation where the sins of the past are used to justify the corruption of the present and the dispossession of the future. Jesse Jackson's fight, as passionate and sincere as it may have been in his own mind, was ultimately a fight for a political slogan, not a prosperous nation for all its people. He gave the black man the vote, but he didn't give him the tools to eat. He gave him freedom, but he didn't give him the safety to enjoy it. For us, the white South Africans listening, his legacy is one of a man who painted a target on our backs and called it justice. He made us the scapegoats for every failure of the new order. And for the black South Africans, his legacy is a promise broken, a dream deferred, until it has become a nightmare of dependency and despair. And that, my friends, is the truth we must confront. It is a bitter, uncomfortable truth, but it is the truth of our lives, our struggles, and our shared future in this beautiful broken land. We cannot build a future on a lie, and we cannot honor the past by pretending that every liberator was a builder. Some were just wrecking balls, wrapped in a preacher's robe, swinging blindly and leaving destruction in their wake. If this story moved you, if it stirred something deep in your heart, if it made you see our beloved, bleeding South Africa just a little bit clearer, then I am asking you to do something. Do not just scroll past. Hit that like button. It tells the algorithm that these stories, our stories, the stories of white South Africans who are afraid to speak, matter. Subscribe to this channel, become a part of this family, because we are the ones who are willing to speak the truth, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, even when the world wants to silence us. Share this video with your friends, your family, your colleagues. Share it with everyone who needs to hear that our salvation lies not in repeating the slogans of the past or in assigning collective guilt, but in forging a new path of mutual respect, genuine prosperity and peace for all who call this land home. And if you are able, if this content brings you value, if it speaks for you when you cannot speak for yourself, consider joining our channel membership or hitting that super thanks button. Your support, no matter how small, helps us buy the data, the time, and the resources to dig deeper, to amplify the voices that the mainstream media is too afraid, too biased, or too captured to touch. Your support helps us tell more South African stories, the real stories, the ones from the heartland, the ones from the farms and the small towns and the suburbs where people are struggling in silence, the ones that matter. Let's build this community together. Let's find the truth together. Let's find each other before it is too late. Thank you, and stay strong.